if you have a second where you're not expected necessarily to deliver, right? The teams that are in the Euros expected to deliver. The teams who are in the Copa America Femenil expected to deliver. They have that weight of expectations off of them, other than the normal ones that you get coaching the U.S. Women's National Team, to kind of cook, right? Cook in the kitchen a little bit, see what you can come up with that looks different, surprise some people in the upcoming years. Hello, everybody, and welcome to today's edition of The Late Sub, the last one for 2024. I believe it is New Year's Eve as we release this, which is the perfect time because we're going to be doing some New Year's wishes. We're going to go through the major sports that we talked about all year. Last week we looked back. Today, we're looking forward. We're going to talk about what we would like to see in 2025 from all of these major leagues, major teams, because 2025 is going to build on 2024, but it's going to be very, very, very different. So I got my wish list handy. Hopefully I've been good enough to get what I want. Let's dig in. So last week we looked back, we looked behind us, we recapped the 2024 that was mentioned. It was a transformative year for women's sports, and it was a pleasure to watch and react to and learn from. But after that week of reflection, I think this week we're just going to focus on 2025, which is sooner than I ever thought it could possibly be. It'll probably move just as fast as 2024 did. There'll be twists and turns that we don't expect. But maybe I thought it would be fun to go through, maybe not New Year's resolutions, but maybe a New Year's wish list for 2025 as we move out of maybe this year of transformation or of realization or of, emerging and all of these other great things that we saw in 2024. Moving on to 2025, this would be like the perfect 2025 for me, Claire Watkins, as I cover the breadth of women's sports next year. We're going to just go piece by piece, just like we did with the 2024 review. We're going to look at different teams and just jump into kind of the things that I would like to see. This isn't going to be specific. I'm not going to be like, I want so-and-so to win the blah, 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 but I will be like, here's how I want things to happen, because so much of the joy of following sports in general, it is how it happens, not just who wins at the end of the day. And certainly for me, I always find the way somebody got somewhere to be much more interesting necessarily than who's like hoisting the trophy at the end of the day. So let's start maybe with the U.S. Women's National Team. It goes hand in hand, what I want for 2025 and what we saw in 2024, because the U.S. Women's National Team, I think, earned their 2025 through 2024, and therefore I want them to grab onto it. I want 2025 for the U.S. Women's National Team to be a year of experimentation, and it has been hard-earned, right? 2024, maybe we thought was going to be the year of experimentation or the year of change, and like I said, certainly a transformative year for the U.S. Women's National Team. But there was also a year of rebolstering the team's reputation after a very disappointing 2023 World Cup. The 2024 Olympic gold win has earned Emma Hayes and her staff an experimentation period that is also supported by the international calendar that we'll be seeing next year. And that's what I want. I want them to seize the moment, to be brave, to not be afraid to lose or start somebody who's not ready or try out a different shape or a different tactical style or leaning into strengths that maybe we didn't realize the players had. Experimentation. And I think the hard part, that's where I say, I think the hard part is over, right? After you have rebolstered the reputation of a team like that, where they go on and they win gold and they do it through change, right? They have the brand new front line. They have new leaders on the back line. But again, we always keep talking about they can do more, they can do different, they can widen the player pool, they can start to truly look like a new team. I want the U.S. to try out different midfield combinations. As we know, people kind of circled that as a question mark going into 2025. I want them to play younger players. I want to see some of the U21s that did so well last year, even maybe the U17s who did so well last year, dig into the player pool a little bit. I want them to really get uncomfortable with the question of who should be the starting goalkeeper going forward. Again, Alyssa Nair did the team such a service stepping back. They have this long runway to figure out who that person is, commit to some people, commit to a rotation, truly give people a chance, see what they can do. The U.S. is going to feel a little bit siloed next year. I think maybe that's the context to all of this. European competition, for example, will be at a minimum. I'm not sure they're going to get to play anybody necessarily from Europe next year due to the European finals, or anyone who's in the Euros will probably not be interested in any big program against the U.S. Maybe at the end of next year, you might see that kind of that same European trip that we've seen in the other years in the past. But I think they're going to have a chance to kind of cook with a little bit of the world's eyes not on them so much. Certainly our eyes will be on them. I'll be following here in the States. But if you have a second where you're not expected necessarily to deliver, right? The teams that are in the Euros expected to deliver. The teams who are in the Copa America Femenil expected to deliver. They have that weight of expectations off of them, other than the normal ones that you get coaching the U.S. Women's National Team, to kind of cook, right? Cook in the kitchen a little bit, see what you can come up with that looks different, surprise some people in the upcoming years. The U.S. should use the fact that they're going to be feeling a little bit siloed in 2025 to their advantage. And I think it's going to feel like a wasted opportunity if they don't. But maybe let's move on to kind of what I would love to see from the greater international football landscape. I already mentioned next year will be the year of the Euros. It will be the year of Copa America Femenil. I just want the momentum to keep going. I want international football. I know it's not a World Cup. It's not an Olympics. It's these regional championships, which are amazing, but are not obviously world championships. But I just want the Euros to keep the momentum going. I want Copa America Femenil to keep the momentum going. Euros, I hope that the lopsidedness of the draw actually maybe works in the favor of drama as opposed to against it, where, again, maybe if you can focus a little bit less on who wins, which I know is hard, you would say, okay, isn't it great that a group like Group A is going to be competitive, right? Or we're going to see some incredible group stage matches in Group D. Is it fair, quote unquote? Maybe not, right? But will it be close? Will it hopefully avoid kind of blowouts? Maybe you'll see some of that in the first knockout stage. But this idea that each of these groups are actually well balanced in a way that will make for better competition from the very beginning, because I think that is always the dream for women's football at this juncture, is that it's not always just the great matches at the end. You want them at the beginning too, and throughout an entire tournament. So I'm hopeful for competition for the Euros at the beginning. But then also I kind of want not the opposite of competition, but I think Copa America Femenil is a very different opportunity where you want the top teams in that region to keep pushing, right? Brazil's Olympic silver last year, I think or this year. Oh my gosh, I'm already living in the future. A statement of intent from them, I feel, where they're back at the top of the world stage. They're figuring out what the post-Marta era looks like. They are getting ready for a home World Cup in 2027. This is a huge cycle for Brazil. And I think after sort of seeing such a European tilt to the semifinals, for example, of the World Cup in 2023, the European nations are going to want to keep pushing in that direction, and they're going to want to keep the momentum of sort of that explosion of 2022 and 2023. But then you're going to see Brazil want to keep pushing in that other direction to keep things really competitive at the top and not necessarily feel like you're going to be seeing a ton of teams from one particular region dominate once the world comes back together in 2027. So I'm excited for both of these tournaments. I love watching these. Obviously, like I said, the U.S. is its own thing. They're going to be a little bit siloed off next year, but I don't think that's necessarily bad. And that gives me a chance just to sit down and enjoy a lot of really good top tier football and just kind of dig into some of the teams that maybe you don't always get a sec to dig into when you're talking big competition. So very excited for the summer of international football next year that simply just will not be including the United States. But you know what will be including the United States for soccer? Maybe this is, again, good seg. Good order, Claire. Good job. NWSL. The NWSL does not have a major tournament coming in and changing the schedule next year for them. That is a huge opportunity. The NWSL, I think, has done a good job of trying to capture the attention during major tournament years. But we're also seeing sort of that major tournament bump become something a little bit of the past in a good way, which is that you already have people who are watching the NWSL. You already have people who are aware of the U.S. Women's National Team and aren't learning about these players. They maybe are more familiar with these players. And so you're seeing more steady viewership, more steady attendance, but you're not seeing some of that same explosion off of the major tournaments, to which I say, let's flip the script. I think it might be a greater opportunity to present a linear narrative of the season without a major tournament, rather than having to come up with, Challenge Cup or Summer Cup programming in between, where you're tuning in, but you're saying, oh, the bandwidth is so high, I'm watching this other thing, trying to watch NWSL. These aren't the players that I'm used to playing. I don't know how much these teams are taking this seriously. I like the idea that the regular season is going to be king next year for the NWSL. That's very exciting to me, because what I would like to see from the entire league is getting back to that idea of greater parity and more clear tactical styles. In 2024, we were blessed with 4 awesome teams, some of the best football we've actually seen in NWSL history, right? But everything else felt a little bit like a blur. You heard this throughout the year of this show, where I'd say, this is really exciting, and there are these teams that I love to watch. And then I start to struggle to grab onto the tactical stylings or even just the promise of some of these other teams. I wish for more clear tactical ideas further down the table. I wish for teams with front office issues to kind of pull it together so that they can put a more complete package out on the pitch. I want the league's parity to be back on display, but not because these top teams are shifting downward, but because we're seeing coaches with real clear tactical styles. It felt last year like maybe it was going to be the year of the coach. We saw some of that. We saw the cream rise to the top. We saw the teams with really good coaches, like they were the ones who thrived. But you saw the teams where it felt like players were either struggling to understand what was being asked of them, or what was being asked of them wasn't clear or wasn't effective. You saw a lot of those teams kind of struggle in the middle, where maybe you have some individual brilliance, or you have some real gritty defensive performances, or you just sort of have that unity of the locker room to try to pull things out. But I just want more and better. I want the NWSL to be a league where people can try new tactical things out. I want it to be a league because it's so fast tempo, where coaches come and they change their perspectives. I can't wait to see, for example, what the Washington Spirit look like next year after Jonah Heraldez has had a little bit more time in the league. And I would like the parity to be a little bit greater. No Olympics, no expansion. That's like the big mantra, right? In expansion year, you're going to have high highs and low lows. They're going to have another one of those in 2026. This is the year to shore things up, remain really competitive top to bottom, because you're going to see that bottom drop out again in 2026 when they move to 16 teams, which is fine. But you have to keep kind of shoring it up, and then, you want it to have that ebb and flow. So I think that all of that is also to say with more of the off the field stuff, which is that there was a women's sports explosion in the United States this year, but it was frankly very basketball focused. And I think that that is awesome. But how can the NWSL kind of pivot that greater awareness of women's sports into greater viewership, greater cultural currency of the NWSL? For a long time, they've done that through major tournaments, as I mentioned. But I really do think that the answer in the modern era is not about major tournament bumps. It's about getting in front of people week in and week out during a year without a major tournament. Have consistency, challenge your teams to frankly have good ideas and put a good product out on the pitch. And I think that this is also going to be an interesting year to the CBA. I mean, I think one of the biggest stories over the last couple of weeks is sort of the Gotham motion. Some players moving out, some players moving in. We're seeing Houston make some big moves. I would like to think that this will also be a year where teams can utilize the new CBA to their advantage. So big opportunity year for the NWSL. I would like them to grasp it. That's a lot of little things rather than one big thing, but greater parity, clear tactical styles, and owning the narrative for an entire season, beginning to end, is going to be key. But again, moving on to what I consider to be, I think it's pretty obvious, the big winner of 2024, the WNBA. What can they do in 2025? A lot. I talked about this last week. The transformation of the WNBA last year was not always easy. It was not always comfortable. It brought in a lot of really toxic discourse in addition to a lot of new fans. These growing pains where you have to kind of figure out who you are when you grow at that rate. And I'm not sure the WNBA had landed on that when they had this opportunity, which is maybe why for me, I hope 2025 is the year that people can really appreciate the basketball that is being played. 2025 for the WNBA, the year for real hoopers, right? Whether it's players, coaches, fans, executives, media, real ball. That's what I would love to see in 2025 because of the insane coaching carousel in the league. I feel like I can see, I guess, from these front offices that have moved on from old coaches or moved on to new ones, not all of which I thought were great decisions, but there is at least this desire for clear tactical basketball ideas and for change and growth and updating the player pool and getting new ideas in and new thought processes. And they're going for new. And I actually, if I don't always agree with each individual case, I do understand where that comes from. It was a transformative year. They need new ideas. And I think that is going to be also implemented on the basketball court. For example, yes, I'm going to say it. I think the WNBA is going to start prioritizing threes more. It's going to become a bigger part of the game. I think guard play is going to improve dramatically. I think some of the coaching intention for guards is going to become more specific. I think jobs on the court are going to become more siphoned into a coaching philosophy as opposed to just letting a great player hoop, which also you need to do sometimes. But there was a little bit too much of that, I think, in the WNBA in the last couple of years. I think coaches are going to implement more dogmatic systems possibly, and some of them are going to crash and burn, but some of them are going to look really impressive. And I think it's going to usher in a new era of sort of discipline at both the offensive and the defensive end, or I'm hoping, right? This is manifesting. And there is also going to be continued change. There's going to be greater investment There's going to be a whole new, really exciting rookie class coming in. I think the sophomore years for a lot of last year's rookies, it's going to be really impressive to see that growth. And then even off the field, right? Or off the court, right? It's an expansion year. They got a brand new team. That is going to change everything, and it's going to keep rolling. It's not just going to be in 2025, but 2026, maybe 2027. That amount of change is going to shape the way that coaches lead. It's going to shape the way that players play, both as a team and individually. It's going to change the way players move in the offseason. The CBA negotiations that are ongoing is a big part of what we're going to see in 2025 and beyond. There's going to be a healthy shakeup, hopefully. That's what I want. I want the shakeup to be healthy. I want these players to be respected as hoopers, and I want them to have the resources to do so. And I don't just mean facilities and venues. I mean good coaches who can help these players play to the best of their ability as a team to keep pushing the product forward. The finals were so electric. I want the exact same thing and even better in 2025. Or maybe let's go to NCAA basketball, the season that we're in right now. So I'm going to focus in 2025, not focus on what's already occurred. What I want in a way is like a year of the upset for NCAA basketball. If not, maybe the year of the contender. People keep asking me who I think is going to win March Madness next year. And the most honest answer I can give is I don't know. I don't know. There's at least 5, I think, NCAA teams that could go all the way, maybe more. And that's so exciting. You've got teams that have high ceilings, but maybe lower floors. You've got teams that are more inconsistent at this moment of the season. You've got teams that are figuring out how to play as a team with high-profile transfers. I think the dissolution of the Pac-12 is a huge underlying narrative of a lot of these teams where you're trying to figure out how to integrate talent into your roster, into your starting 5 that you might only get for a year, or that you need to sort of try to optimize what they can do for you this year, while knowing that, again, it just takes time to figure out player tendencies and coaching tendencies and the way they want these players to play. You've got star freshmen coming in. I think some of the most exciting players in all of NCAA basketball are either freshmen or sophomores. But then you also kind of have that North Star of Paige Beckers as sort of that big super senior. Yeah, but it's still pretty early days for the NCAA basketball season. But the fact that I don't know who's going to win is really exciting to me. So that's what I'm saying. I want it to be the year of the field, the year of the Cinderella story, the year of new faces to fall in love with. And I think also you have to look at last year's champion in South Carolina, where what I love about this year is all of those things is not saying that South Carolina can't be right back there. Not undefeated, but that's kind of what I mean. That's what's so exciting is you're going to have a very good basketball team that is not infallible win the NCAA tournament next year. And that could be the reigning champions. That's exactly who they are. I think they are in that 5. I think with every game that I watch, I think, man, South Carolina still really good. I think you could talk about UConn, who have taken a couple blows recently, and you want those to turn into learning experiences. Or you could think of Notre Dame, who maybe is just as likely to drop a weird one against an unranked team as they are to beat, the number 1 team in the country. I think you've got these teams that can be just so incredible on each given day, but also have the ability to fall short. And that is a potent mix, in my opinion, as we move into conference play and then we move into the postseason in the spring. So I just like that. We do talk about the parity in NCAA basketball, and I think we're kind of seeing that this year and kind of not. The transfer portal and NIL there's a high concentration of talent at the top of the NCAA basketball landscape, but it's not all on one team. It's on maybe 5 or 6 teams, and those teams are so, so, so good. I'm just so excited. I'm so excited to see what happens and what we continue to learn and how these teams change. Because like I said, UConn last year is the team I keep referring to. They did not look good this time of year last year, and they make it all the way to a Final Four. Who's going to be that team this upcoming season? I cannot wait to see. Now, some quick hits here, just some quick moments that I want to touch on. Tennis is starting up. That's like the first, I always forget, right? I'm always like, what's going on in January? Tennis is always kind of that first sport that you get to fall back in love with during a new year. Tennis, I want 2025 to be the year of maybe rivalry in tennis. I think the maybe knock on women's tennis in recent years is that there are so many contenders, or they're all quite young, they're emerging, that you're not necessarily seeing some of the more human, like compelling elements of it come out that we got so used to with the greats of the last era of tennis. I want there to be tension. I want there to be something there where, Sabalenka so badly wanting the world number 1 from Iga Swiatek and getting it and then losing it and then getting it back. Or you saw it start to bubble over in the incredible emotions of the Olympics this year. I don't know if anybody, watched any of that, but there were some words over the net at the end of each match. that kind of emotion, or even like players like Coco Gauff, who I think is poised to have a massive 2025. You saw her serve, like her emotions kind of sitting on her racket with her serve, where sometimes it was amazing, sometimes she was struggling with it. The personalities are there, and these really compelling athletes are there, and they're now experienced and confident enough, I think, to start cultivating, again, some of those really addicting narratives that only tennis can provide, because you live and die with an individual in that sport. And I think also tennis is really interesting because there is real money on the line in the way that we still do not have in a lot of other women's sports. You look at the Sportico, right, top 10 highest earning female athletes of 2024, tennis, because they're getting paid a lot of money just to win at tennis. Their wages for their actual sport are so much higher than any other sport in the United States. This is real. There is so much on the line here. Not that the rest of it isn't, but man, I just want to feel that from these players. And so I'm really excited to see what tennis could look like this year, because I think people are starting to see those personalities come out. They're starting to meet these players more. They're starting to understand the history between some of the top players in the sport, what the momentum looks like, maybe players who don't like playing each other. That's what I want from tennis. I want that to continue to cultivate, because I think that's part of what makes it such an addicting sport to watch. Hockey, more hockey everywhere. I want the PWHL to continue to meet fans where they're interested in seeing them. Hard following 6 teams. It's harder when home markets don't always house everybody. You know, sometimes I think like Boston is a good example. You've got teams that play kind of pretty far outside the city. I want more trips, more expansion. I want to reach more of the country, both in Canada and the United States. More. That's going to be a theme. Volleyball, year-round understanding, which is a constant practice, kind of balancing the regular season with the electricity of the postseason. How do you continue the story of these players? How do these new kind of fledgling pro leagues try to continue to tell the story of these players long after they're done with NCAA? How do volleyball and softball take their immense popularity in the youth levels and in the college levels to the next step? Just really fascinated to see. And then final one, just for women's sports in general, I was thinking about this as I was kind of putting this together. I mentioned, again, 2024 was a transformative year, but it was, I just keep thinking about how women's sports at this moment are an emergent space. That's always how I describe it, right? That's what part of what I say is so fun. Someone goes like, how cool is it to work in women's sports? And I go, it's amazing. You're working in an emerging space. How rare is that? Feels like there's so much treading water just in sports in general right now, to feel like you're part of something that is exploding and getting bigger, and it's doing this on this natural momentum. It's awesome, but there's still so much further to go. We're nowhere near the year-round coverage investment put into men's sports regularly. And I love that. I love, well, not the investment part, but I love that it's growing, that it's changing, that it's challenging ideas. But it's just that theme of just, I think sometimes you can get so focused on the gains that it's hard to see how much further there is to go. And I just want the things that we were excited about last year to start feeling normal. And I want us to be excited about new things. And I want growth and change with respect to these players, coaches, front offices, and media members to continue. And so I just cannot wait until we're at a point where we get all of it on the court, off the court, on the field, off the field, learning about players' stories while also getting to truly analyze what they actually do, have them be compensated for their work as an athlete without necessarily having to focus so much on the off the field stuff. Treating every player with the respect that they deserve and understanding the context of the history of these sports that came before, and letting people who know a lot lead the way. And I think that is just my dream for women's sports in 2025. Hockey stick. We're going up and up and up and up and up. And I just cannot wait to see what happens next. So this has been the final episode of The Late Sub for 2024. Thank you so much to everyone who stuck with us this year. Really appreciate reading. I do read the comments. I read all of them. Everyone who listened to the show, maybe caught us on YouTube, caught us on where you listen to your podcasts. Truly appreciate it. This has been such a blast. I feel like I've just gotten to talk through every major story this year. How incredible. We are going to be taking a little bit of a break, a little hiatus going into the beginning of next year. It's our off season too. It's time to bulk up in the gym, watch film, retool, and get ready for the next season. You might see some changes. Maybe this format's going to change a little bit. But it's going to be better than ever in 2025. So I hope everyone has a really nice off season along with us. Don't lose us. Don't lose your bookmark of what you've been listening to with The Late Sub, but you're going to get more from Just Women's Sports next year. We've got a lot of really exciting shows with me involved and other people. And I think it's going to be really, really cool to see what happens next. So once again, I just have to say thank you so much to everyone who walked down this road with us. And I hope that when we reach kind of that next fork in the road, you follow us there as well, because there's so much more to talk about in women's sports every single day.